Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes, and welcome to my next series of books picked by my dad, which is the series about anger, and yeah, I don't have a good title for this one. This is just series about anger stuff. And basically, I had asked my father to pick some books with some kind of thematic link between them in some sort of way. So this is the series of books that he picked. And this first book sits at a rather odd place in the whole collection, mainly because after talking to my father and expressing my confusion about what the hell he was talking about when he was giving me his little blurb about why he picked this book, he admitted that it had been long enough since he had read it that maybe he had forgotten what was in it. But this is on the list, and so we're going to discuss, I think, the fact that there is no anger in this book, despite the fact that you would think that there would be. I mean, it's not that there's no anger in this book, but we don't see any of it. If there is any, it's with people whose perspectives we don't see. So, Arthur C. Clarke, Childhood's End. Arthur C. Clarke is, of course, the author who coined, very roughly, because I haven't bothered to look up the exact quote, the phrase that sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. You know, that whole concept that if I were to show a TV to a caveman, that caveman would think that I was showing him some kind of magic window into another world, or magical little tiny people in a box. The caveman would not understand that this was some rather complicated technology that I can't explain because I don't science. But the concept of sufficiently advanced technology is not discussed in this book. What happens in this book is that just when mankind is about to go out into outer space, they're doing their first, serious space flights. This book was published, by the way, in 1953, so more than 10 years before the moon landing, and at a time when nobody would have even thought that anyone would get into outer space in their lifetime, and lo, it happened, that they're just about to go to outer space when a bunch of aliens show up and basically take over the world. And in my description you'll see that I say gently, inexorably, and quickly or immediately, because the aliens basically show up, and with an overwhelming display of we have way more technology than you do, they basically stifle any thought of resistance on the part of Earth. Somebody tries lobbing a nuclear bomb at them and they basically just catch it and nothing happens. And they take over, and they enforce a world government, they enforce world peace, they stop all cruelty to animals, they do all of these things one after another, rapid fire succession, and the first perspective that we get is a perspective of two engineers who have been working on building the first spaceships, the first rockets, the first whatever they were, and then we cut to predominantly the perspective of the man who is in effect like the president of the world government, who is the only central singular line of communication with the aliens who have come to be called the overseers. And the thing is that they have not shown themselves, they have refused to show themselves. They speak only to him through some sort of TV screen. It later turns out that it's just a two-way mirror, but be that as it may, the point is that they refuse to show themselves. They simply speak through their technology to him, Minister Stormgren, And we get his perspective, and he's very much in favor of them. He even thinks of the overseer with whom he has primary communication, Corellin, as a friend. And it's very odd that there is no anger. It's very odd that you don't see in this book the anger of, it's mentioned in passing. You couldn't really not, but it's only in passing mentioned the ire that people have when their individual nationalities are taken away and they're told, nope, you're all just under one big umbrella government, that's it. No more individual countries. And there is some kickback from people, some pushback, but there really is shockingly little anger. And there are people who are trying to stop the overseers, to circumvent them, to do all kinds of things, because the humanity's self-determination has been taken away by these people. But again, we don't see displays of anger, we see resistance, but it's a very calm resistance. It is a cold-blooded resistance. It is a thinking and careful resistance. It gets quashed nonetheless, but there is no hot anger, there is no outburst. And then you have the so-called Golden Age, where we get this view that starts 50 years after the beginning of the book, with the idea that basically the overseers are waiting until a generation has passed, when you have the majority of people on Earth have predominantly grown up with the overseers, have grown up in a world where science has trumped religion very, very hard, and that all of that fear and irrational superstition has been quashed, so that when they finally step out of their ships and show people what they look like, nobody is going to freak out when they see that these aliens look like demons. And again, there's no anger, there's a frisson of fear. There is a vague sense of disquiet, a vague sense of awareness that there must have been some point in history where there was some misadventure where early travelers from the overseer species had landed on Earth and had upset somebody. But everybody just is very, very calm and takes it calmly and rationally, and oh well, that's great. Science and logic have trumped superstition and fear of the unknown. And then you get to the end of the book, and at the end of the book, hey, spoiler warning, people, for a book that was first published in 1953, at the end of the book, the children of planet Earth wind up, effectively, they are sort of the next stage of human evolution and have become caught up in the Overmind, some kind of Star Wars Force, or, I don't know, Power Rangers morphing grid. I have no idea, but some kind of powerful, godlike existence above and beyond the base place of human consciousness, and these children are basically going to become at one with that consciousness. And all of these people, their children are basically taken away from them. Their children, bit by bit, day by day, lose their grasp on the human reality and just become more and more distant, until one day they just march onto an overseer ship. None of them are concerned or worried or anything, and the overseers just take them away into isolation where they can develop in their oneness with the Overmind without human interference. And they inform the people of Earth that this is what they were here to do, to nursemaid these children into being, and that these children would become a part of the Overmind. And Earth, basically, everybody on Earth, there is no outburst of anger. It's the weirdest thing. There's no depiction of mothers screaming as their children are walking away from them, wholly unaware of their parents. There's no upset. It's this nihilistic emptiness, and the end of this book is just horrifying to me. Just everything about this, the idea of all of these people, and all of these people who give up, and whether it's that they believe that any children they have will also just get carted off because into the overmind, or if they've just given up on having any more children, or whatever, I don't know, but the entirety of Earth sinks into despair. People commit suicide, and others become reckless because, well, we don't have any future, our species has no future, and everybody gives up. And the last we see is one man who had snuck aboard an overseer ship because he studied outer space and he wants to see the stars, and the fact that the overseers had said, you guys can follow any investigation, any scientific path you want, except going into outer space, and he has felt very quashed by this because it's what he wanted. He gets on their ship, and the whole relativity thing where closer you to go to the speed of light, the slower time goes for you, while the faster it moves everywhere else. So it will take, 4 months for him to get to whatever planet and 4 months back, but it will be 80 years on the outside by the time that he gets back to Earth. And when he gets back to Earth and they explain to him what happened, he's also not angry. He's just resigned. He just sees this as, oh well, that's just how things are. And he settles on Earth to provide his observations, and when the children reach the final stage, they destroy the planet, and right to the last, he doesn't care. He's resigned. There's just this sense of, well, it's beyond me now, and so there's nothing left for me to do. And for some reason, Corellin and his species, which for whatever reason can't evolve this way, feel as though they are prevented from something, as though they're blocked from this. And it's this dismissal of the human perspective, this blatant belief that somehow our limited human lives are so worthless that the only thing that's important is this carrying on into the future, and if you cannot carry on into the future, then there is no value in anything for you. Like, that, you don't see people either trying to have more children to carry on into the future, to say, well, okay, you've nursemaided, now can we get off this planet? No, everybody just decides, oh, well, the stars are not for man, only our children who are part of the Overmind can possibly be part of a spacefaring. It's just really horrifically empty, the end of this book, and maybe somebody else finds more uplift in this, but the thing that shocks me in this book is the lack of anger. It fits, despite the fact that my father had misremembered what happened in this book, it fits into this theme perfectly, not because there is anger in the book, but because of the perplexity I have at the lack of anger. That you have these aliens and they come and only a few short years later, no one's angry at them, and no one's angry at them when they say, by the way, your children are just going to cease to be your children. You should, enjoy them now, because in a couple of months, your 7-year-old isn't even going to recognize you anymore because he will be lost to the Overmind. That Jan, at the end of this book, he sees these children who are left in a desert in Australia, but because they're part of the Overmind, that they're all just like singular cells in the greater Overmind, and they injure themselves and don't notice because it doesn't matter, because it's like when you get a cut on your leg and it doesn't matter to the overall state of your being or something. And he's not angry at it, and the overseers, their species isn't angry either. It's just really weird. And that's all I have to say. So I'll see you all next week.